Dr. Morris Waxler was the official at the Food and Drug Administration who back during the 1990s was most responsible for seeing that LASIK eye surgery was approved. Dr. Morris Waxler, that same Dr. Morris Waxler, today is leading the campaign to outlaw LASIK eye surgery. And before you allow them to cut on your eyes or on the eyes of a loved one, you really owe it to yourself to read the petition that he has submitted to the Food and Drug Administration. I have a copy here and it's posted on my website, dated January 6 of 2011, petitioning that LASIK eye surgery be outlawed. And I'm going to read to you parts of 2 paragraphs that are really important for you to understand if you, your son or daughter, a spouse, somebody you know or love is thinking about LASIK eye surgery. You owe it to yourself to read this, because I can almost guarantee you the LASIK surgeon is not going to share this incredibly damaging information with you. And here's how Dr. Waxler starts out. Starting during my tenure, FDA decision-making on LASIK devices was dominated by LASIK surgeons working hand in glove with LASIK manufacturers. Data recently brought to light exposes this partnership for what it was, a classic example of the fox guarding the henhouse, wherein the primary arbiters of safety and effectiveness of LASIK devices were the device manufacturers and its collaborators. And then I skip over some of the details he talks about, and this is to me really the bottom line. This captures what in other videos I've talked about, the militant ignorance on the part of the LASIK industry, the conspiracy of silence to prevent you as a potential patient from really understanding the risk that you are taking with your precious eyes when you let them cut on your cornea. As a consequence, the FDA was deprived of knowledge of the full extent of LASIK injuries prior to and during FDA reviews of documents submitted in support of the safety and effectiveness of LASIK devices, and then he cites the law. In addition, LASIK manufacturers and their collaborators, i.e. LASIK surgeons, withheld safety and effectiveness information from their investigational device exemption, IDE, reports to the FDA. That's illegal. In addition, they hid LASIK injuries from the FDA within the context of out-of-court settlement of innumerable lawsuits. In other words, like the one that I described with the Wolf Eye Clinic and is posted on my website, which I believe they settled out of court precisely so that they would not have bad publicity or have to report it to the FDA. Clinic-sponsored IDE studies cherry-picked, withheld, and hid data from FDA that clearly showed LASIK with excessive adverse event rates. That is illegal. These activities were an industry-wide effort organized wholly or in part by the manufacturers and their collaborators, LASIK surgeons, in order to circumvent FDA law and regulation. And he says, I will submit confidential information on these matters separately to FDA's Office of Criminal Investigation. What Dr. Waxler is saying is they lied to us, they submitted false and fraudulent data, they continue to deceive the FDA and the American public about the dangers involved, and that it is not only unethical, it is potentially criminal what they are doing. Now, make no mistake, I think most of the ophthalmologists who are doing LASIK eye surgery themselves, they're decent people. But not one of them is speaking out about the unethical LASIK clinics, the LASIK mills, about deceptive, fraudulent advertising, about the incompetent providers that they all acknowledge exist. That means that it's up to you as a primary consumer of LASIK to decide whether or not you're going to let them cut on your eyes. It also means that the industry, as an industry, has been deceptive at best and fraudulent at worst in portraying the alleged safety of this procedure. On another video I mentioned that I talked about this with a group of about 650 operating room managers, not one of whom disagreed with what I said, but many of whom shared their own stories of LASIK disasters. And one of them told me I predict, she said, I predict that LASIK will end up being the next Dalcon Shield. And of course, the Dalcon Shield was a huge product liability disaster. And the reason it was a product liability disaster is that it was a human disaster caused by unethical behavior. Whatever you think, whatever you have decided for yourself, you owe it to yourself to do your homework. Why would the man who approved LASIK eye surgery at the outset now be leading the campaign to outlaw it? Read this document and ask yourself, does this square with what they are telling me at the clinic? Does this square with what they're telling me about how safe this is for me, for my son, for my daughter, for whoever it is? And if it doesn't, you have more questions to ask, you have more research to do before you let them cut on your eyes.